Every life tells a story, but most of us are so busy living our own stories that we rarely stop long enough to see the entire picture. We tend to define ourselves by a job title, by a success, maybe a failure, or maybe the hardest chapter of our life that we've ever walked through. But what if our lives are actually being shaped by something deeper? What if there's a pattern? What if there are moments? What if there are people, unexpected turns that have been forming us all along? That's what this show today is about. Not simply what someone has accomplished in their life, but how they became the person sitting across from me right now. My hope is that we can discover over the course of this journey the picture of our guest's life. And maybe you might begin to see your story a little bit differently too. Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. I'm your host, Tony Marr, and I'm joined today by Jason Frazier, founder of Surrender House Ministries. Jason has dedicated his life to helping men rebuild their lives. But today, I don't just want to talk about the ministry. I want to discover a little bit more about the man behind it. Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch, where we have real conversations about life, faith, and meaning.
There's a little bit of sports and pop culture mixed in.
It's all about living a life of purpose on purpose.
So pull up a chair, grab some sweet tea, and join us on the porch.
All right, Jason Frazier. Yeah, so before we started recording, you told me that your life has been like a movie. In fact, you said, I think that your life could be several movies. So if I am sitting in the theater, I've bought my tickets ahead of time on Fandango, I've got my big bucket of popcorn, I've got my Whoppers and my Boston baked beans because those are my go-to movie candies right there. I've got I haven't had a soft drink in about 4 years, so I don't have my supersized Dr. Pepper sitting there anymore. Now I've got a glass, a big thing of Dasani water, Aquafina waters, and the screen goes dark. The previews are all over, and the camera fades in. Where is this story starting?
Probably as a child. I grew up in South Carolina, Orangeburg. I grew up in an area where white people were a minority. I grew up in a loving family, mother and father. My mother was, I think, trying to be a teacher at this time. My father was an athletic coach at Garden City Christian Schools. I grew up.
What do you coach?
He coached all the female sports, volleyball, basketball, and softball. I think he coached the men's basketball also in the high school. It was a D1 school, and I apologize if I'm incorrect about some stuff. I was very, very young. But he coached a D1 school, private school. I don't think there was any more than 100 students within the school. But I grew up playing a lot of athletics. Anything that had a ball, I was game to play. Baseball, basketball, softball, soccer, whatever it was, I was actually involved. And so my dad utilized me during the sports season in these practices. And so here I am as a child, and I'm around all of these high school kids growing up, playing ball, being athletic the way that they are, and that was kind of really all I remember as a child. I don't really remember too much of child interaction, kid-to-kid type interaction. Obviously the kids in my classes, but outside of that, not a whole lot. Which obviously this was in the 80s, so it was a little different. So to find kids down the road was a doable thing. Ride your bicycle, be home before dark type stuff. Just tell me where you're going and we'll be okay. And so a lot of it really started there for me. My athletic career started there. The athletics IQ that I have started there. My dad utilized me running bases on the softball team as a child, and they would have to try to get me out, run pickles. I guess all the energy that I had, he just ran me. Chasing volleyballs down during volleyball practice, basketballs down in basketball practice, learning how to run sprints and doing all that stuff at a very young age.
So a lot of those childhood memories involve a field or a court?
Yes, absolutely. Some way, form, or fashion. And so when I was growing up in Orangeburg, South Carolina, my dad coached all of the female sports in the school. He also did the disciple Bible class or study. I don't really recall what it's called on Wednesday at the school. And so my father was the first coach in the state of South Carolina to win state championships in all three sports and athletics with the same group of girls throughout the whole year. They swept the whole conference and all of that, did Division I type stuff. So they won the volleyball, the basketball, and the softball all in the same year. Almost repeated it the very next year. So I grew up in a home where I saw what winning looked like and how to win, and the effort and the energy invested in winning, and team play. How some sports are team sports and other sports are a little bit more like individual sports, because I think when you play baseball and softball, you can't do any more but what's in front of you. You can't do anything else. Like, I can't go help over here or help over there. I have a position that I have to play, and it's my position, and so I play my position the best that I can. Whereas I think with volleyball and basketball, there's a little bit more of a team effort where it's involvement with a pass, another pass, a pick and roll. And with volleyball, it's a bump, set, spike. So it's more of a team effort on what you're doing to move forward. And so I had a lot of that early in my life, and I watched my father practice hard. We were in church every Sunday, every Wednesday. My father also operated and worked with the youth out of the church, and so I got to grow up in ministry work. I watched my father invest in young people growing up. I didn't really fully understand what I was watching and paying attention to. Now that I'm older, I understand it a whole lot more. I remember my dad and my mom bringing in people that, to me, they were strangers. I didn't know really who they were. And they would bring them into the house, and they'd give them a room. They would bring them into the school. They would try to help them, and like that stuff was very foreign to me. I had no clue what that meant or what was going on as a young child. In the 90s, we ended up moving into Johnson City, and my father took a position at Antioch Baptist Church as the family life minister. And so in the 90s, we all moved to Johnson City. My mom was teaching in South Carolina, was not able to make that trip. So I grew up with my father in Johnson City at this point in the 90s. I was around 10 years old. And so my mom would travel back and forth on the weekends and come up, I think, Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, and go back. And that's kind of what my childhood looked like.
How long did that last for?
Oh, man, I was only 10, 11, 12, 13 at the time. Pretty much the whole time that we were in Johnson City for the 4 years, I think, maybe 3 years. And like I said, I may be incorrect on some of that, but I'm pretty sure that that's pretty close to accurate. So my mom's looking for teaching positions in Tennessee. Wasn't having any success at it. And what ended up happening, I think my mom ended up getting a teaching position at McDonald Elementary School in Mohawk, which is in Greene County. And I remember us traveling to Greene County, me and my mom and my dad and my sister, and we're going to look at this school where mom is possibly going to be getting a teaching job. And I remember we went by this church. The name of the church was Fairview Baptist Church out in Mohawk. And it was I remember this, and I don't know why I remember it, but I remember going past this church and my mom and dad being like, we might end up pastoring a church like that one day, or saying something very similar to that. And so, like, all this stuff is foreign to me. I'm a kid. I just want to play sports. I don't care about nothing else. I just want to run and jump and swim and play and, swing on ropes or whatever it is that I'm doing. And so I remember dad being the family life minister, mom looking for a job, my mom traveling there on the weekends, me being homeschooled. And so the story pretty much starts at that point with the upbringing with a whole lot of athletics in my life.
How did that move impact you? Going from this life that is completely revolving around sports, athletics, and now coming here where your dad's no longer coaching, I'm assuming, and your mom and dad are essentially separated, not emotionally maybe, but physically, and living in a single parent household for 5 days of the week.
Yeah, it didn't change any. The reason I say it didn't change that my dad went into the Family Life Ministry. And so within the Family Life Ministry at Antioch Baptist Church, my dad created what was called the ABA. The church allowed him, had a gymnasium. And so like I was next door to a gymnasium, had key to it 24/7 as a young child. And so I spent a lot of time in the gym at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old with a basketball in my hand all the time. I had a guy by the name of Michael Miller, who lived down the road, who's now a teacher, that used to come in there, and we would do like home run derbies in the gym because they had a balcony, and like he would just kill me on the home run derby. It's like he was older than I was, and so like he would just kill me on this home run derby. We would throw tennis balls, and we would hit tennis balls, and that's how we would do the home run derby in the gym. But my dad created the ABA at Antioch Baptist Church, and it ended up being something really, really big. Like we had ages from children all the way up to 40, 50-year-old. If they're 60 and can play, they can play, and created different divisions. And so like that's what it looked like. Not only did he do that, but he brought that aspect from coaching into the church, which obviously created new ministry work. Which I did not know what that meant at that time. He also brought in a volleyball league. And so during volleyball season, he had volleyball and football season. He had the volleyball league that he had created, and a lot of this is interactions with the churches. It's open to the community. So we had a lot of people just in the community putting teams together and coming and playing also. But the majority of it was church related type of people. My dad also created the Sun Golf League. And he ended up buying a trailer, and the Sun Golf League ended up being one of the biggest golf tournaments around, I believe, in Johnson City area. We were trying to, I think it's the Sun Golf League, I think was the name of it. We tried moving out towards Middle Tennessee because the East Tennessee area had just gotten so big that it was time to venture into something larger. So I got to watch my dad do all that stuff. So like the sports aspect never went away. If anything, it created more interaction with sports, more so than anything else, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part never really went away.
What was your relationship like with your dad?
At the beginning, my dad was very hard on me. I was very ADD and ADHD. Still a little ADD and ADHD today. But I was very ADD and ADHD at a very young age, unmedicated. There was no research on this stuff. I think they had just started coming out with Ritalin in those days. My mother said that the Ritalin was good for me the 1 year that I took it. And then the 1 year that we took it, the very next year we ended up moving states. So the relationship with my dad was good. I was just so wound tight, man, that I was probably really hard to deal with. And so, like, I have great memories with my father, but I also remember a lot of my father losing his emotions on me. And I was spanked a lot, had bruisings on me. So for a child, and I've even used the words like there was a lot of times I felt like I was being beaten. And I'm sure as a child, that's probably what it seemed like. You know what I mean? Anything that wasn't pleasant was was terrible. You know what I mean? And so, like, I was disciplined a lot of hands-on type discipline as a child. I don't think there was anything abusive when it comes to my father's as far as like his motives or anything. So I don't think there was any type of abuse mindset. I have a child today with my wife. He's a little high-strung. And so I get to do things differently with him than how my dad did with me. And it's not that my dad did a bad job. He didn't do a bad job. There were some areas obviously he could have done better in, but I think back then there was just lack of knowledge. There was just lack of research. There wasn't enough, intel for how to deal with these types of things. Like today, there's a lot more research, and people are trying to figure out healthier ways to deal with ADD and ADHD, high-strung kids. Man, I remember going to the emergency room getting stitches in my head, and as soon as I got my stitches out, I was bouncing from the front seat, back seat, because we had the bench seats in the cars back then, front seat, back seat, front, and drilled the light in the car, and like the prongs split me open, and then they took me right back, and the doctor was like, "You just took stitches out of it." So like, give you an idea, kind of how.
What were your dreams as a kid?
Oh man, I wanted to go to the NBA. I grew up watching Jordan and Bird and Magic, Isaiah Thomas. The list goes on and on and on. The Pistons, Dennis Rodman and Kevin McHale and all of them. The older group, the more physicality group of the NBA when it was a lot different than what it is today. But I had the dream to go to the NBA. What started happening was, the older I got, the taller everybody else got, and so everything started changing. So like the Spud Webb and the Muggsy Bogues that I remember, like, oh, if they can do it, like there's hope for me. Yeah. It kind of changed by the time that I got into my 20s and stuff. So I wanted to go play pro ball somehow, some way. I don't know what that looked like, but I wanted to do that for a living, and I didn't really understand what for a living meant or looked like. I just know that like I want to go as far as I can go and see what happens for the most part. I had no other plans. Like there was no other plans to go to school. There was no other plans.
I was the same way until like my senior year of high school. Like this is plan A.
Yeah, I'm going straight to the top. Yeah. You know what I mean? The greatest ever. You know, I think that should be a child's mentality growing up, is that they're gonna be the best and that they should work hard for it. And that's what it was like for me. So it was no other option. And so when those things kind of went away, I was kind of stuck. You know what I mean? Like I had no clue about anything in my life, period, whatsoever. And I think this was like around age 20, 21.
So you were still at 2021 holding on to thinking that you would be a professional athlete?
Not so much. So I went to college on athletic scholarship.
For basketball?
No. I was a terrible student. When I say terrible student, like terrible student. ADD and ADHD on the highest level at age 15, 16, 17. One semester I failed 3 out of 4 classes. Female problems with it, as a child, you know what I mean? The whole puppy love type stuff. But yeah, I wanted to go play basketball more than anything. I had letters, I had interest. I went to junior nationals as a junior, not as a senior. So like people were aware of me. But like with my grades being the way that my grades were, there wasn't really nobody saying, hey, you want to come play with us? Here's some scholarship money. And so for me, I think things started shifting once I started getting into that age of like, okay, before I go any further, I want to go to college without my parents having to pay for anything. It was a pride ordeal. Yeah. It was an ego ordeal. Oh, well, somebody paid me to go play sports in college. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of one of the things. So I ended up going to Great American Baseball Showcase in North Carolina. Me and another guy from high school went together, and apparently there was a lot of scouts there, a lot of people paying attention. Obviously, my grades are absolutely garbage, and so I go and I play, and I end up going and practicing with a college in South Carolina. They sent me information, wanting me to come, asking me to come and practice basketball with them. So I went and played basketball with them. I was not aware that the baseball coach had stepped in and paid attention to the practices. And so after the baseball coach watched me practice, and apparently he was there at the Great American Baseball Showcase, a couple weeks later sent me a letter and was asking me if I wanted to come and play for a scholarship. And so at that point, being young, I jumped on the first thing and the hottest thing that stuck out. And I ended up going to college on baseball scholarship with absolute complete hopes of maybe being able to transition into playing basketball. And it's not that I wasn't capable of playing basketball, but like baseball was a very natural sport for me. I did not have to practice in the off season. I had played so much baseball that it's a lot. So I think when I was like 15, I think I was playing on about 5 different teams.
Wow.
All-star teams. I remember telling the Greenville's coach, like, I'm not coming to practice. I was like, I'm playing here and here and here and here, and I'm traveling doing all these things. So like, I'm not coming to practices, but I'll be here for the games. And so I'd show up for the games, and he'd bench me, and he wouldn't let me play. And so when he put me in, and like, not trying to be, I'm just gonna call the story for for what it is. He put me in after I sat for 5 innings. First at bat, home run. Second at bat, hit it off the fence for a stand-up double. End up stealing third and stealing home. And that was my only showing and appearance in the All-Star game of that game. And that's, and it's like, I don't even want to come and show up, like, if you're not going to let me play. And like, I get it, you want to be at practice if you're not going to play, but like, I was just playing so much baseball, man. I did not have a heart to play baseball. I was just a phenomenal baseball player.
Did you enjoy it, or was it too much for you?
Playing the sports?
Yeah, just your whole life revolving around sports.
No, man, I loved it. There were times that it was a lot. I think my dad knew more than I knew at that point on pushing me to play and play and play and play. And don't get me wrong, man, like, I love going and playing. But like, when I started playing on about 5 different teams, like, dude, it was insane. Like, to try and keep up with all the running and going and doing that I was doing. 2 different all-star teams, 2 different cities, and a school, all at the same time. Yeah. And that was 4. And the guys in Johnson City, they told me, like, you don't have to come to practice, just show up for the games. And that's what I did, and they allowed me to do it. So I thought I could do it in Greene County too. It didn't work. Yeah. They weren't letting it happen.
So when did life become complicated?
When I got kicked out of college. Yeah.
What happened there? Playing baseball.
I'm playing baseball. Started drinking. Started smoking weed. This was in 99, 2000. And
had that been a part of your life growing up?
No. I did everything that I was supposed to do to get to the next level. Growing up, 14, 15, 16, staying away from people that partied and drank and used and things of that nature, which drugs wasn't super crazy back then. There was some, but not like what's going on today. I did everything that I needed to do, or that I could do, to get to the next level. And when I got to the next level, it wasn't where I wanted to be. And so there was a part of me that struggled in that area, if that makes sense. I wanted to play basketball. My heart, that was my first true love. I'm just going to be honest. Like, basketball is my first true love. I'd have killed myself on that basketball court if I had to. That's just how I felt about it. And so going in and playing baseball, there was not this willingness to do whatever I needed to do to get where I needed to go. It was kind of like I was trying to use the baseball aspect as maybe as an avenue to get back on the hardwood. And so the drinking and the smoking weed started, and then it turned into a weekend warrior type stuff. And then I found myself, I think in my second year, I found myself actually going into baseball games, smoking weed, already high under the influence of marijuana, going into baseball games, which was very different. It was a little different for sure, but like it didn't take long. You know what I mean? Just a couple years, and it was at a point where they couldn't prove anything that I was doing, but they knew I was doing it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I guess they got to the point where they'd had enough, and they told me not to come back.
What caused you to turn? That hadn't been a part of your life at all. It wasn't something that you'd seen out of people growing up. What caused you to turn to that?
First time away from structured family. First time out from underneath my mom and dad's wing.
Let's back up a little bit, because we never touched on, so your mom's in South Carolina, your dad's here in Tennessee. She comes to look at the job in Mohawk. Did she get the job?
My mom ends up getting the job.
Okay.
My mom ends up getting the job in Mohawk.
So families reunited.
Yeah. Yes, families reunited, but the family doesn't reunite immediately.
Yeah, I was going to say you're a little apprehensive with that answer.
Because I don't really fully remember all of it. Like I still got basketballs and volleyballs and baseballs and stuff flying around my head, like squirrel here and squirrel there. I don't know what a family looks like at that point. I know what I come home to, mom and dad, but like to actually call it a family or a home, like this is where I live. You know what I mean? That's what it looks like, I think, for a kid.
Go a little deeper into that. You say you don't know what a family looks like at that time. What does that mean?
I think that I was just too young to. Well, I mean, when I say that, it's in comparison of today.
Yeah. So I had a period. It's interesting with where your story is going to go. That my dad, growing up in Las Vegas, my dad, his profession, his job was he ran a company. He started and created a company that if anyone in Nevada, and then it expanded to California, Arizona, and really expanded all throughout the world, that if someone got arrested on misdemeanor or felony drug charges, they could either go to jail or they could go to my dad's program. That my dad had a program that it was called Drug Court, and you would do individual and group counseling, acupuncture therapy, and urinalysis, that you would have to get drug tested.
Yes.
Depending on where you at, which phase you were at. It was 3 phases, I think, if I remember correctly. And in phase 1, you had to drug test every single day. And then as it went to phase 3, phase 4, whatever it was, it would go to 2 or 3 times. And you had to do group therapy, individual therapy, come in for your acupuncture, which helped with the cravings and all of that. And then you would go to court every so often to check in and see how you were doing and any missed treatments, and you would go back to jail. And that was my dad's job. That was my dad's career. And he was, at one point in time, he was the foremost expert in the world on drug treatment and rehabilitation. He spoke to the United Nations. He would travel all over the world to other countries and help them set up these programs to help with drug rehabilitation. But when I was in elementary school going into 5th grade, he took a job working for a hospital in Orange County, California. And we were trying to sell our house in Las Vegas that wouldn't sell. And so my dad moved to California, and me, my brother, and my mom stayed in Nevada. And my dad would come home for the weekends, but on Sunday night, he would drive back to Los Angeles, to Orange County. And then on Friday evening, he would come back home. But Monday through Friday, it was just me, my mom, and my brother. And I remember that year very well as being one of the worst years of my childhood, because I missed my dad. My dad wasn't there, and our home didn't feel complete. And probably about the same time, same age as you were in that period. Maybe you were a little bit older. And so I'm curious to know what was when you made that statement of saying, I didn't know what a family looked like. And my life looked exactly like yours, that every second of every day I had a basketball in my hand. And it was soccer and basketball until I decided that, no, I'm putting all my focus into basketball, and went through a lot of the same things that you did. But I can remember that season felt so empty because my dad wasn't at a lot of my games. My dad wasn't there taking me to practice. My mom would drop me off, and my dad coached my teams for most of my life, except for that year that he wasn't there. And so hearing you make that statement that you didn't know what family was, I'm interested in what's behind that. What causes you, why do you say that, and what's the cause behind that statement?
Maybe possibly the ADD and ADHD part would not let me process stuff. Like, I don't really have a profound type of statement or comment.
You didn't miss your mom during?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah, you just don't remember.
I've done a lot of drugs, and I've drank a lot of alcohol. I've been in very bad psychosis before on a couple of different occasions. And so, like, I don't remember a lot of stuff. I've had a lot of moving in my life, and I've had a lot of disconnect from humanity, and I've had a lot of disconnect from my family. I don't know what it's like to grow up and have best friends, and they be lifelong friends. I think by the time I was in high school, I was in like 4 different schools by the time I made it to high school.
I went to a different school every year from 3rd grade until my senior year of high school, and we only moved once during that time.
So the disconnection part,
Yeah.
I don't really know where that is compartmentalized when it comes to family. I think at some point I probably blamed my mom and dad. It's your fault I don't have any friends. It's your fault that I can't keep friends. Every time I get to a point where I think I'm getting friends, we end up having to up and move again. And that happened a lot.
There was a lot of moving.
Yeah, man, there was a lot of moving. And I'm sure that military kids is probably just as bad. You know what I mean? My mom and dad are not alcoholics or addicts, and they've, I think my dad smoked a little bit. I think I was like 16 when I finally caught him and knew what was going on. You know what I mean? I'm talking about cigarettes. And I think that he hid it from me very well, from everybody very well for the longest time. But I didn't grow up in a drinking or drugging type of unhealthy style of environment at all. I don't really remember what it was, how I viewed it. I had a good upbringing. I did have a loving family and mother and father. I have always, I think, dude,
Siblings? Do you have siblings?
I have a sister.
Okay. Older, younger?
She's older than I am.
Older than you are?
Yeah, she's just a couple years older than me. About 1.5 years to 2 years.
Did she come to Tennessee with you guys, or did she stay in South Carolina?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. You're now back in South Carolina in college,
Yes.
and things start to unravel.
Yeah, it's the first time from being sheltered, away from being sheltered.
Yeah.
I think, and me and my mom have talked about this, I think that if my mom and dad would have allowed me to experience some unhealthy things, that I would have been better off than trying to shelter me through every single area of my life. If I could have had the opportunity to learn at a younger age some things, then maybe by the time I got of age, I would not have been making the mistakes that I were making. I think the first time I had ever gotten in trouble, man, I was catching felony charges.
Really?
So I wasn't
Was there a defining moment that you remember
as far as
that things turned?
yeah, the getting kicked out of college.
You'd
part.
say that would be it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I carried the guilt and the shame. I carried the failure, the not good enough. I've just wasted my whole life. You know what I mean? At age 20, 21.
Did you come back home?
I did. I came back home to a completely new city. So here I am again. Everyone that I went to high school with and the relationships I had built in high school while I was in college, my mom and dad, I could just sense that something was going on. And I remember telling my mom and dad, look, I don't care if we ever move again. I was just at that point at age 20, 21. I don't care if we ever move again, but like, please don't ever move to Rogersville. I remember telling them that specifically on the phone. I don't ever want to move to Rogersville. And it wasn't because I knew anybody there. It was just because I had heard all the things that I had heard. You know what I mean? And sure enough, it was a couple of months later, my mom and I were on the phone and she was like, we're moving again. And I was like, okay. And this is while I was in college. She was like, we're moving again. And I'm like, okay, let me hear it. She's like, we're moving to Rogersville. And I was like, no. And I remember I was like, I'm never coming home. I remember I was like, I'm not coming home. I'm never coming home. I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? I don't know anything about the place. I have no idea anybody or the land, or like, I don't know anything about it at all. I just heard a bunch of stuff and I was like, I'm not coming home. And so I think at that moment it was kind of started really getting bad internally without me realizing that internally it was getting bad. And so after getting kicked out of college, man, I ended up coming back home, and I came back home to another city in a different area where I don't know anybody. And once again, you know, at age 20, 21, which is absolutely absurd to me, that you have to figure it all out once again. Well, this time I'm drinking and smoking weed. And so this time my outlook upon humanity has changed. what I'm interested in and what I'm attracted to is changed, is different.
What beliefs about yourself were forming during that time?
I really don't know, honestly. Like I was in such a bad situation. I did not have a close relationship with God growing up. My mom and dad did, and they told me these things, and I watched ministry work. But like the ADD and ADHD, dude, like I was not capable of processing things. My reading and comprehension was absolutely garbage. My comprehension, period. Like if I'm not having a physical moment of experience, I'm not learning. Like I was a hands-on individual. Like you literally had to show me how to do certain things. Like the hearing it and that part just doesn't register for me. Even today, I still struggle with. Okay, I'm not ignorant in a lot of ways when it comes to like hearing words and trying to place the meaning of them and all that other stuff. But when people are trying to talk to me about a lot of stuff that I'm not familiar with, like I don't really comprehend it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like I have this learning disability where my comprehension is just there's something weird about it. The way that I learn is different than how everybody else is learning, which is obviously the ADD and ADHD, which they talk about these days. And so like I didn't have a strong, close relationship with God growing up. I lived off the coattails of my mom and dad and thinking that the religious aspect and acts of my life were enough and that I was fine without having any knowledge. And don't get me wrong, I had knowledge, but I had no understanding.
Sure.
Like I knew all the biblical stories.
It was your parents' faith.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in church, Sunday morning, Sunday school, Wednesday night, youth classes, youth retreats. The list goes on and on and on.
But
now,
it was cultural.
Absolutely cultural. And I don't think my mom and dad, I don't think that they weren't trying to teach me those things. I just don't think that I was just capable of processing those things at that time.
Looking back on that period of your life, the time in college, how long were you in college?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
That 2-year period, things are starting to shift. Things are kind of spiraling. It ends with you getting kicked out. You come back home to a home that you don't know. Looking back on that period of time, is there anything that you can look back and see that God was doing, God was trying to do in your life?
Yeah, I was in a Wesleyan school, so I was in a D2 school in college, and they had the Wednesday Bible class, church, whatever you want to call it, and so like I was getting those things still being presented to me, the scripture and things of that nature. I think a lot of the worldly attractions started becoming attractive. The alcohol allowed me to see things in a different manner. I liked the effects of it. The smoking weed allowed me to see things in a different manner, feel things in a different manner, and like a whole lot of being high strung the way that I am, and feeling empty, disconnected, all the movement. Like I was at that point, I was ready and willing to do whatever I needed to do to feel better. Crying out to God was not anything I was familiar with as a solution. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it was just a normal working part of my body without no connection, in a sense. It was just showing up, and that was kind of about it. So I think what the world has to offer started showing up in my life. And I started liking and finding attraction in acceptance of the world, the attraction of the world. And like there's so much to talk about when I say that. So like I don't think that I'm going to get into full detail unless you just want me to get into.
Yeah, I would love to know, if I had met you in your 20s, what were you chasing?
20s in college.
Yeah.
I was chasing an opportunity to be able to get back on the basketball court. I was chasing after connection, and I tried to find that through females. I was chasing the disconnect with with guys, the brotherhood with people. Everybody on the team, was either drinking or smoking weed in 99 and 2000. And so like to finally be in a position where mom and dad, I don't have to go home to mom and dad. I can go back to my own apartment, on campus apartment. And so like there was no type of accountability in that area of my life for the first time ever. And so like the drink and the drug changing how I felt was something that I started leaning into a little bit more. And it's not, there was no codependency on it at the time. It was just something that was recreational and enjoyable. And it was something that created a bond with other people that I've never had before. I even hate saying that, if you want me to be honest. Like, I don't even like the way that sounds today.
Why?
But I think that was a lot of it. And I think a lot of people's stories in the recovery community with what like that's where a lot of those stories at. It filled a hole and a void that wasn't present. Whether it's a mommy daddy issue or whether it's a relationship issue or whatever it is that
Well, we all have a deep desire for connection and belonging. And already what you've said, that was something that was really lacking for you in your childhood. And so that was maybe I'm way off here, but a way for you to have that connection with people that they were doing it. And so it became a way for there to be a connection there.
Yeah. There was a lot of people in high school that like they did not ask me to go to parties. They knew my dad was a pastor. My dad helped coach the volleyball team in our high school. He helped coach the he helped coach the baseball team in our high school. So like my family was involved not just with the church and the community, but also within the school also. And so like I think a lot of them was like, I'm not asking him. I don't want his parents knowing that I was the one that got him to drinking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that
No. I was the exact same way with what my dad did. None of my friends were like, hey, you want to try this? That was never happening. They knew, Tony's dad has a machine that tests your pee to find out how close you were. We're not going anywhere near that.
So
I completely understand.
I'd had to deal with a lot of that. And so they knew when I left back then, I'm going home to my mom and dad's. And so when we go to college, it's not the same. I'm not going home to my mom and dad's. And so I have the opportunity of doing it and trying to figure it out. And so, not being in a sheltered environment gave me the opportunity to do some dumb stuff. And like I was me being me, all in, you know what I mean? And it didn't take long. It didn't take long at all.
So then you come back home to a new city, new town.
Yeah.
Still craving that connection, that belonging, but now you're in a place where you don't know anybody.
I found the connection through alcohol and drugs while in college. The acceptance part. Not knowing why people wanted me around, and it's maybe not even that they wanted me around, but they were okay with me being around. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They were welcoming, I think is a better way of putting it. Oh, you drink, you smoke. Oh yeah, come on, let's go. And it's really weird because the people that don't smoke and drink, they don't do that. The quote unquote normal people, it's like, oh, I'm going to keep this wall up. Oh, we have a fence in our yard for a reason. Oh, we have a gate for a reason. And the list goes on and on and on. But the ones that use and then drink, they're more open to other people, whether you use or you drink or you don't, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so when I go back into Rogersville, after college, the people that I was seeking out were a different breed of humanity at that point. And so moving into that area, there's nothing there. There's hardly any work there. There's no future. They're 10, 15 years behind easy. I don't even think they had a Walmart in 2020 and 2021 or 2001, 2002 or something like that. I don't even think they had a Walmart. They still had a Kmart that was operating. The Kmart now is actually their jail and courthouse. And Walmart actually is a real thing there anymore. But yeah, there was nothing there. No activities, no community. You had church, and that was really about it from what I could remember, 25 years ago, 26 years ago, whatever you want to call it. And so like the people that I ended up investing in and hanging out with and all that other stuff, I think that I would go into that area and I'm like, hey, can you get some weed? You know, where's some weed at? And being the area that it was, like it was, marijuana was a hard thing to get in that area, which blew my mind because where I come from and everything I've been through, like it's I can get it. And they were like, you know where weed's at? And I'm like, yeah. And so that's kind of how a lot of stuff started taking off. I started recognizing an opportunity to receive some finances, and that became attractive, and it was easy, and nobody else could do it. So it put me on a pedestal. Now I'm needed. Now I'm wanted. You know, now that I have this fame and clout of things that has never existed before. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, the worldly attraction started really shining. Yeah, it grabbed a hold of me. Bad.
What happened that began to turn the tides for you?
So I started feeling guilty about spending money on drugs. I ended up watching the movie Blow, and I saw a different aspect of getting high. And when I ended up watching that movie, like it really changed the dynamics of like, oh, this is real and this is a possible thing. And so like I remember where I was sitting, I remember when I watched it, and I remember what was going on in my life. I lived in a town where drugs, like it was just, that stuff was just really kind of hard to find and get access to. But where I had came from, it was very plentiful. I remember the first time that I had ever seen, you know, any kind of marijuana before, it was like a quarter pound of marijuana. And so like that's a lot of marijuana. Back in those days, it was a whole lot of marijuana. And so like I basically started, you know, selling drugs instead of going back to work. Kicked out of college. I'm not really embarrassed, but I am very shameful. I carry a lot of guilt. I feel like I've wasted everything up until that moment. I was trying to go to school to be an athletic coach. You know, obviously I grew up in that. I know these things. It would have been second nature to me. So I went to college to be a coach, and when I started selling and doing these things, I was already getting high and getting drunk. So I tried transferring schools to Walter State. There was something about going to school without playing sports that I could not do. I did not understand why people went to school without playing sports to begin with. They were like, oh, I had perfect attendance in high school. Hated school. But I had to go to school to be able to play sports.
To be able to play, yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, well, I showed up every day, and I was there every day, and I had perfect attendance almost all 4 years. I only had very few days that I was not there. And so, like, I always showed up. And so, like, I put in all this effort. Our final exams, they give us 100 on our final exams by having perfect attendance. So me not being a good student, I can at least show up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that was a lot to do with how I got through school. But like I carried the guilt, man. It was like I did all of these things to get to where I'm at, and then I just blew it, you know? And it's like now I'm kicked out of school and I'm going to try to just go to school, and there's no purpose for me to go to school because I'm not playing sports in this new school that I'm trying to transfer to. And so I'm using and I'm drinking at this time. I end up going into the class high. I end up trying to go back later on that week. I think I'd end up taking a whole bunch of Xanaxes. Pulled into the parking lot at Walter State, and I basically just sat in the parking lot, and I'm just like, I can't go do this. It's like, I'm not doing this. And at that point, I never even tried to go back to school again. And so like at that point, within the year to 2 years of me starting, I was already in a position to where I was becoming, you know, active user, and the addiction part was taking place without me even knowing what that meant.
So that moment in your car, was that conviction about your lifestyle and saying that I need to change something, or
No.
what? Okay.
No. not conviction of like I needed help. It was more like
I'm not wasting my time.
yeah. It was more like giving up. It was more like I'm at my ends of trying to do anything successful. I don't know what else to do. I'm getting high. I'm liking it. All these other things. So like I was battling with the flesh on a big level without realizing that that's what was taking place. I was dealing with the right and wrong aspect of my life, everything that I was programmed in comparison of everything that I'm choosing today, trying to hold myself together while I'm deliberately causing myself to fall apart without realizing that I'm causing myself.
You didn't realize.
Yeah, I have no idea what it is that I'm doing. All I know is that I like the effects of drugs and alcohol, and I liked how getting high made me feel, even if it destroyed my life, which I felt like my life was destroyed anyway. What is life to a 21-year-old that's played so much sports and athletics? And like, I know for a fact that I'm going to be playing sports, or at least involved in sports for the rest of my life. And I'm sitting here at a point where I can't even go into a classroom.
Did you feel like you'd lost part of your identity
Oh,
when
absolutely.
sports were taken away?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Don't even know who I am anymore. I don't think I really knew who I was to begin with. Like on a real personal, in-depth note, like I've never really felt connected to the world. I've always felt like there is something different about me that is not like everyone else. And I wasn't really too for sure what that meant, and I wasn't really too for sure what that looked like. I have these gifts and traits about me that are very minimal in society. The things that I see and I hear, the discernment that I carry, the BS detector that I possess, a lot of these traits and spiritual gifts that God has given me, I did not understand that that's what they were growing up. And because of those things, it kept me at a disconnect from humanity. I just always have felt like I'm just different. Like I'm just like the book says, you're set apart. You know what I mean? And so like I understand it more today, thank God, but during that time, like I always felt like I was just set apart in a different manner, and I felt like there was just something wrong with me. I could not establish friendships or maintain them, which today, knowing what I know and having the understanding and the relationship with Christ the way that I do, it all makes sense to me today. I can accept it today because I know that I'm anointed and I'm chosen and I have a calling, and to have all of that, you're going to be separated from the world. You're going to be disassociated from the world. They're not going to want you, and they're not going to like you. There's something about you that wigs me out, and I don't want to be around you. And that's how I feel, and that's how I have felt on how people, viewed me.
So where did the shift happen? When did the change happen? When you realize this isn't the life that I want anymore. This isn't the life that I'm want to be living anymore.
I don't think I ever wanted it from the beginning. I wanted to play sports. You know what I mean? But like I did not have a fallback game. It was only sports. There was no other aspect or area in my life to invest in. I didn't know what that looked like. The only other thing that I knew was to go to church. That was it. And so, as far as like the defining moment, rock bottom, it was almost 6 years ago. It was it really started in like 2018. I started going into a psychosis, a drug-induced psychosis.
Oh wow! So
this
from
is the whole
2001, 2001, kicked out of school to 2000. You said 18.
Yes.
Wow, so that's a 17-year period that you had there where that was your life. That was chasing that connection, chasing that acceptance.
Yeah. I've got 20 years active in addiction. 13 of those have been behind bars. in and out, multiple felony convictions, a federal conviction and charge. From the time I got kicked out of college, you know, I was telling you a minute ago, like marijuana and drugs and stuff, like it was hard to find in the area that I was in. I traveled back to my high school area to get things. And within a year and a half, I got caught with like 6 pounds of weed and over 200 Xanaxes and a firearm. First time I'd ever been in trouble. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is normal to me. It's just marijuana. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing bad. But yeah, I've got 20 years active addiction. There's a whole lot in that whole.
Did you ever find what you were looking for in that world?
In that world?
Yeah.
Yeah. I found everything I looked for.
You found acceptance and belonging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't there no more. Until it about put me in the grave. And other people. Yeah. It's you know, the devil looks to seek, kill, and destroy. It's not ironic that I have felt the way I felt my whole life, and that I grew up with a calling on my life. My mom told me at age 16, God's calling you into the ministry. So that was a huge part of my journey. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, God's calling you into the ministry. And this was like age 16. And I was like, nope. Nope. And then at that point, I was looking at my version of it. Well, I'd be willing to do this. Well, I'd be willing to do that, having no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to ministry work. And so my mom was right. And I ran from it. I tried running harder and deeper into sports. Obviously that didn't work out, so I ran harder and deeper into using and prison sentences and things of that nature. The question was, when did it start? Is that what she said?
Before that, I want to ask you, you got emotional in that moment. What's behind that? What instigated that for you?
That I don't want to say that I've wasted a lot of time, but like I went through a lot. I went through a lot, and a lot of people don't come out of what I came through. I've heard of many people hanging themselves with the same issues of what I've had. People killing themselves. Yeah. People intentionally overdosing. Writing letters, suicide letters. And so, like, what I've gone through, not everybody comes out of. My rock bottom was very, very bad. It was not nice to me at all. My psychosis, what I believe today, after what I've learned in the past 6 years, I believe has been how do I say it? God allowing me to see the spiritual realm, with the demonic side. And so the rock bottom and psychosis, I did not know what that was at that point. I just know I was seeing things and hearing things that other people weren't seeing and hearing. And a lot of people are going through this, even today. A lot of people are going through this. A lot of people I deal with in recovery is going through this today. But it's just that I have created a testimony for myself, yes. And so a part of that is tears of joy.
Yeah.
But I've also destroyed a lot of things. I helped destroy our family. My mom, my sister, my dad, the niece, the nephews, my daughters. I've helped destroy all of that with the things that I've done and the things that I was doing. God has restored almost 100% of all of that today.
I was going to say, how's the relationship with the family now?
It's all been restored but one. We're waiting on God to do whatever it is that he can do with that one. And so the tears come in because, like, I know that all of this has been part of his plan.
Can you see that? Can you look back over the 20 years and see where God's hand was there?
I do. I don't want to sit here and be like, oh yeah, God, he wanted me to go and do this. I'm not really convinced that he
of course
wanted
not,
that to happen. But like the part of like God knew that I was going to make these choices.
Yeah.
God knew that, because I mean we have the freedom of choice.
And in that he was there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are times, you're a parent, there are times as parents that we have to let our kids make decisions that we know are destructive.
Yes.
We know they are not the right choice.
Yeah.
And because we love them and because we know they're like, you said earlier that you've had the conversation with your mom that if you had let me fail maybe a little bit more, it would have prepared me better for life.
Yeah.
I've used the analogy before on this show that when you're teaching your kid to ride a bike, at some point you have to let go of the seat.
Have to let them fall.
And you know they're going to crash. You know they're going to skin their knee.
Yep.
But if they're going to ever experience the joy of freely riding the bike without training wheels, you're going to have to let them go sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we see our kids going down paths that we want nothing more than to just grab them, lock them in their room and say, I'm not letting you go down that path.
Yeah.
But as soon as they call out, we're there. As soon as they say, hey, I need help, we're there.
Yes.
And it sounds like to me, looking back on your life, that you can see, as I look back on my life, I can see moments where I was like, okay, God protected me there. God was there. He was there. He was guiding and directing. Even though I wasn't fully obedient, he was still present. He was still there. And the way that God redeems our story, doesn't change our story,
Yes.
but redeems our story, not for us, but to bring him glory,
Yes.
is, man, it's such an incredible thing to see from the 30,000 foot view, to see in hindsight, to look back at our life and see all of the places where God was evident that we had no idea of it at the time.
I always felt connected somehow, some way. I believe my mom and dad had a lot to do with that. I believe I've always been connected somehow, some way, and protected somehow, some way. That doesn't mean that I'm not getting hurt. It doesn't mean that things aren't happening. I've been in multiple totaled out vehicles, flipped vehicles. So I've been through the ringer on some stuff in that area. So it wasn't until I got to the feds when I was in federal prison that I remember calling my mom and telling my mom for the first time, I was like, I don't see God or feel God anywhere. And that one was difficult. And this was at my rock bottom part, same time, same area. But I've always felt God's presence somehow, some way. I always had some type of peace about me, knowing that I was going to be okay. The one thing I have learned is that God will grant me the desires of my heart. And it doesn't matter what the desires of my heart is. If the desires of my heart is to be corruptive and to sell drugs and to chase women and to do all of this worldly type of things, he'll allow me to do that. He will grant that for me. It's almost like, oh, you want to go down this road? Here's the road. And so I truly believe that regardless of what the desires of your heart are, he will grant you the desires of your heart. But when it comes to healthiness, godliness, I think a lot of that changes when it comes to the desires of your heart, because you're willing to put the action in while living a secular lifestyle. I'm willing to go to the trap house. I'm willing to carry firearms. I'm willing to wear bulletproof vests and travel to different states and do all these things. But when I choose God, I'm not willing to pray. I'm not willing to go to church. I'm not willing to quit listening to rap music and trap music and secular music and all of that stuff. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to quit using profanity, So like the desires of my heart when it comes to God is like, how much are you willing to chase after God, and how much are you willing to surrender and to be submissive to God's plan for you? And I'm still doing that today. And I think that's a part of my journey. That
it's a continual process.
Yeah, it will never end, and I'm always trying to get closer to Him.
If it ever does end, I think you've got a problem.
But as far as like the desires of my heart and the secular aspect of it, like it was all there and offered and given any way, form, or fashion or shape that I would want it. Be creative, right? And the world will offer it to you, right? It'll keep you, separated from what it is, and will keep you attracted, and will keep you distracted, and will keep you away from all this other stuff. So I believe that God will grant you the desires of your heart. When it comes to chasing God, how deep does that desire go? Are you surface level God, or are you not? Are you golf ball size miracle God, or are you basketball size miracle God? Are you a mailbox miracle size God, or are you a mini dome miracle type God? Does that make sense when I'm saying that? And it's so, like, for me, I tell people all the time, like, my God is so big and so strong and so mighty, and there's nothing he cannot do. And so when I think about the omnipotent part, and it's like, dude, I tell people all the time, this is only the beginning. You think this is great? You think this is amazing? Like, dude, we're just getting started. This is only the beginning. And I try to always place that mindset of, like, there's so much more to come, no matter where I'm at. Because there is. There's always so much more to come. He always reminds us. Me and my wife have prayed, God, just continue to blow our minds. Just continue to blow our minds. And he keeps blowing our minds. You know what I mean? So I believe that aspect of the desires of your heart is very true. Like how much you're willing to go to any lengths for drugs or alcohol, or for the secular life. You're willing to go to any lengths. Needles, prostitution, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You're willing to do that. That's the desire of your heart. You're chasing it. But when it comes to God, for some reason, we can't transition that into an actual relationship and chasing after him in the same manner. There's a barrier there.
What did your mom say when you had that phone call?
I think she asked, "What do you mean?" And so I tried to explain to her, I've always felt safe. Even while in prison, while in jail, I've always felt safe. Like there was something there that was protecting me. I was always able to see God around me, and maybe that's with the protection that I'm talking about. Yeah. I don't know. But when I got to the point in the feds, it's a whole nother animal. Whenever I was transitioning and traveling federal transit, I hit up a couple of different facilities. And at this point in my life, I've already gone through a psychosis once, a drug-induced psychosis. And so I was coming out of it, and as I was coming out of it, for some reason, I wanted to know about other religions. And I met some people that tried to help me understand, and I wasn't looking for other religions to convert, but it was like, I like to understand why it is that you believe what you believe. And for some weird reason, I started getting into that whenever I was in the feds. And so, like, I was asking about the Islamic, Muslim, beliefs with the Quran, and trying to get some information on why it is that people believe what it is that they believe. And it wasn't that I was questioning my own faith. I was just opening myself to a new world at that point, not realizing that that's what I was doing. I ended up in a cell with a guy that was a Satanist. A little weary for me. It was a little weird, you know what I mean? And it's not like he was just practicing crazy. He wasn't really practicing anything period whatsoever. But the one thing that I gathered, he had a satanic Bible, and he was like, "Would you like to hear what it says?" And I'm like, actually, yeah, I would love to hear what it is that it's talking about, because like I've never heard anything like that before. And so basically, it was basically stating that they are their own God, and like if somebody harms them, that they can go harm them back, and they create justice themselves. And so it was a really, really weird type of ordeal sitting there. But I believe something happened by putting myself in those type of environments, that some spirits were freely moving, and I wasn't aware of that aspect of the realm. Spiritual warfare and the realm of spirituality is not something that I was familiar with. It wasn't something that they talked about a lot in the Southern Baptist and Baptist community and church. My mom and dad did not have a lot of history. Like, they had a little bit surface level on it, whereas today there's a little bit more in-depth understanding about what it is that we're dealing with. and I don't think we fully truly know, period, whatsoever. But I believe I was being exposed to some things through my psychosis that is the spiritual realm where people are not allowed or capable of seeing. I think some people just have that gift. I think God's given you know what I'm talking about when people have those gifts, So
13 years in and out.
In and out.
Where does surrender come? Is there a moment that you can remember? Is there a person that is a part of that? When do you realize this can't be my life anymore?
I made a phone call to my federal probation officer. I hadn't been out the feds, man, just a couple of weeks, and I was already back to doing some things before I went to the feds, doing some of the same things. I probably sat still for like maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. So going into my fourth week, I decided I was going to get high again, and so and at this point it's harder drugs. I'm using methamphetamine, ice, whatever it is that you want to call it. And I started using IV. I started being an IV user. I wasn't quote unquote a junkie or anything like that by no means, but I was always curious of like what is it about this needle that you guys are willing to throw your whole life away over? Like, I don't understand it. Do you not value your life any more than that? And here I am asking that question.
When, you didn't see the irony.
Yeah, they could have looked at me and been like, dude, you've done nothing but time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you go out and you catch nothing but state charges. Like, you don't catch no smart charges. And like it could have been thrown right back at me. But like for me at that point, because I'd never done it, I was better than you. I wasn't your junkie like you guys are. You know what I mean? Being a bottom of the barrel junkie addict is not who I am. The byproduct of my addiction is selling drugs, trafficking drugs, things of that nature. And so it's the getting high comes with the selling, for the most part, or at least it did with me.
The moment that things.
So
changed.
I called my federal probation officer, and like I said, I just started using a needle prior to this situation, right before I'd gone into the feds. Got out of the feds, ended up doing it again, went right back into a drug-induced psychosis again, just like that. Like, it was so fast, and it was really bad. And so with a psychosis, what I'm talking about is I'm seeing things and hearing things that other people aren't seeing and hearing. I'm seeing silhouettes of people. I'm seeing shadow people. I'm seeing camouflage people, tree people. I'm hearing voices in my head all the time trying to get me to commit suicide and trying to commit me to commit homicide. I'm seeing faces on TV screens, like if the TV screen was shut off, silhouettes of it. I'm seeing people and faces, and they're talking to me and pointing at me. I'm hearing voices in my head trying to get me to go hang myself, jump out in front of vehicles, go shoot myself. I'm hearing voices of my mother and my daughters being raped and beaten. I'm hearing voices in my head telling me that I'm going to be like this forever. The list goes on and on and on. I don't want to get into the federal conspiracy aspect of all of this. So I ended up calling my federal probation officer. I thought it was a good idea. And telling him, like, hey, man, like, I'm being followed. Like, is there something that I need to know about what's going on? Or, like, are you guys following me and watching me again for some reason? Like, I don't understand it. He's like, Jason, it sounds like you've been getting high. Have you been getting high? And like, and I was honest with him. I was like, yeah. I was like, I've gotten high. And he was like, well, what have you done? And so I told him. And he was like, what I want you to do is I want you to turn yourself into Turning Point. And at this point, like, I'm on the run. When I say I'm on the run, like, I don't even know what I'm running from. I just know that all these things that I'm seeing and hearing, all these voices in my head, the voices in the basements, the voices in the closet, the voices in the attic, the voices in the rooms of my mom's house, like all this stuff that I'm hearing, I'm wanting it to stop. I'm not wanting to get healthy and better. I just want this part to stop. And so I call him and I'm telling him what's going on. I told him that I use, and he's like, I want you to go to Turning Point, which is in Johnson City. And he's like, and I want you to be there tonight by 11 o'clock. And that was the we'll see moment for me. when the rubber really hits the road, and like what decisions are you going to make. And when I tell people we'll see, that's what I'm talking about. We'll see will be that fork in the road of you're going to do this or you're going to do this, and your decision at this moment is the we'll see what happens type moment. And I was at that moment, and so luckily I made it to detox. I got my mom to take me, and my mom went into detox with me when I was doing all the paperwork and stuff. And I remember my mom telling them, like, y'all need to get him back there. If y'all don't get him back there, he's getting ready to run. And I was ready to go. Like, I was still seeing all this stuff following me. Trucks following me, cars following me, weird things happening on my phone, all this stuff that's taking place. And so that was pretty much the defining moment of, like, I knew I needed help. I needed so much help that I was willing to call my federal probation officer and ask him if there was something going on that I wasn't familiar with, which obviously he put that stuff together. And so I'm in detox at this point. From detox, they have 2 squad cars come and get me. And as I'm walking out, I'm asking them, I'm like, are y'all detaining me? And I'm insane at this point. I should be in a padded room, straight jacket, complete loss of sanity. I have no sanity at all, homicidal and suicidal thoughts. And these 2 officers come and get me, so I'm wigging out again. I think that I'm going into a federal holding facility, and I think that they are getting ready to take me into an execution. And I'm living this out.
Wow.
Daily.
Wow.
Very, very, very difficult. I feel like I'm being haunted. I feel like I'm being stalked and chased. And I feel like I'm walking into execution style of death. So 2 squad cars come get me, and I tell them, am I being detained? They're like, no. And I'm like, so when this door opens up, like, I can leave? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You're either detaining me or you're not detaining me. And if you're not detaining me, I ought to be able to leave. Like, you shouldn't be able to tap me, because I'm getting ready to run. And but they're like, well, yeah, we're detaining you then. And like, dude, I don't have no fight left in me at this point at all. Like, I'm at my absolute worst, rock bottom, scared of my own shadow, don't have any clue what's going on. I'm seeing, visions of human bodies with animal heads, in silhouettes and shadows and like all kinds of stuff, which today I recognize as more of a demonic aspect of some things. And so they end up, 2 squad cars come get me. They take me to the emergency room. They do emergency evaluation. From the emergency evaluation, I'm flipping out, completely flipping out. They have me locked up in this room, super bad, wigging out. So I end up going from there into Woodridge. I spend, a week in Woodridge, and I'm trying to open up screws in the windows to get out of Woodridge. Like, it's that bad. And that's pretty much at that point that, like, I start realizing, like, this is bad. Something I need help. They tell me that they have a place for me in rehab, at Magnolia Ridge. I go into rehab for a 28-day program, but they tell me I have a 2-week wait before I can go in there. And so at this point, I think I've got like over 2 weeks clean, without a substance or a drink or anything like that. The psychosis is still all over me. They say that psychosis can stay on you from anywhere from up to 6 months to a year and a half.
Really?
Without any drug use
Wow.
at all. So here I am, no drugs in me, and still dealing with the psychosis aspect.
Wow. I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's a real thing. And so when I'm in Woodridge, they are giving me some medication to try and help. And they tell me, well, we have a bed for you, but it's in 2 weeks. I'm like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to go back to my mom's. I just had my mom's whole house barricaded, and booby traps inside the house in case somebody comes through a door or a window or something, that I'd be able to hear it. And so, like, it was not a good situation. And so, like, I make it those 2 weeks also. So now I've got about a month clean. I don't feel like I'm clean.
What did you do in those 2 weeks? Did you go back to your mom's?
Yeah, I stayed at my mom's.
And no issues?
There's a whole lot to all of this, yeah. like there's just so much to it. Yeah, I have the same issues. Like, if nothing had changed. Like, if I'm still putting substances in my body, nothing's changed. Still seeing and hearing things. Like, if it were 2 weeks prior.
But you didn't relapse during
I didn't relapse. I didn't use. I didn't do anything. Like, I don't know how I got through this part of my journey.
You know how. You know how.
I do. I was willing to allow something different to happen, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know the decisions that I'm making. I'm just in hopes that like something's going to happen, and so like I'm trusting a process that I have no idea what that looks like or what it means. And so they're like, "Don't do anything. You got 2 weeks and come in here." And so I get into rehab, and when I go into rehab, there's guys that they all have on the same red clothes. And so automatically I go into, I'm in a federal holding facility, and these are gang members, and they all have on these red shirts and shoes, and like, oh, it's color coordinated. Dude, I'm a basket case, like a complete basket case. But what I did find out in that moment that I was in a quote unquote safe and healthy environment. And I did not know that at the time because I was still being haunted. You know what I mean? But I was in a position where I was surrounded by some guys that had already been through some of the stuff that I've been through. I was surrounded by some people that were a believer. I was contacting my pastor. I remember before I went in to rehab, I called my pastor and I was like, "Hey man, like I'd like to come to the men's group and I would like for you guys to pray over me." And so he met me at the church one day, and my mom's with me. I wouldn't go nowhere without my mom at this point. So my mom was with me everywhere I went. I don't know how she made it through it, but she's made it through it. And so like I go in there and I'm explaining all this stuff to my pastor, and I'm telling him about how I'm seeing these things and hearing these things, and people are after my family and they're after my mom and my daughters, and like it's just a whole hot mess, man. It's absolutely terrible. Living in fear on the highest level every single day, day in and day out, lack of sleep, just absolute complete disaster. And I remember contacting my pastor when I was in there and trying to talk to him. And so I start praying when I'm in rehab. And I don't start praying when I'm at my mom's. Not that I remember. But like when I finally go into rehab, like I actually start praying. And I'm not even for sure because I feel completely disconnected from God at this point. I don't feel him or see him anywhere, period, at all. I felt like God has took his hands off of me, turned his back on me, which I don't think is a real thing. But that's where my mind was at. And so like there was no connection, period, whatsoever with any type of spiritual relationship at all. And so I start praying, and you know the faith of a mustard seed ordeal. And so I go back to my roots of where my family programmed me and teaching me all these things about God and crying out to him. And when you cry out to him, he's going to show up, and he's just waiting on you to call out to him. The whole surrendering ordeal wasn't really a big thing in my head at this point. Like I was a complete disaster. There was no rationalizing anything at all. And so I started crying out to God. Every time I started having a psychosis triggering type of a moment, I would separate myself. I would go into the bathroom or into a different room. I would completely go by myself and I would start praying. And that was the only bit of peace that I received. And it wasn't a lot, but I knew when I went to prayer,
was enough.
Yeah, it was enough to get me through, and it was enough to get me through. And so like this was multiple times throughout the day. Like if I could make it an hour without having to step away from everybody, like I was doing fantastic at the beginning. But I would go and I would start praying. I'd start reading the Bible again, which is what I was taught and knew to be true. And it was like, okay, God, if you're real and like if there's anybody that can change me, and like I remember crying out to him like, don't let me be like this forever. I want it to stop. And a lot of times, man, I didn't even know what I was praying. My brain wasn't working properly. I just knew that whatever was going on, I wanted it to stop. And I continued to pray, and I continued to cry out to him, and I continued to beg, like, please don't let me be like this forever. You know, restore my mind, give me my mind back. There was no bargaining, there was no deals. It was complete desperation on the highest level. And
It was the live or die moment. At that moment, it was life or death for me. I had had the thoughts of suicide, and I'd had the thoughts of homicide. And I'd go and I'd pray, and I would have a feeling of peace and comfort. And it allowed me to go back in there. And that's what it looked like for a while. And so as the days and weeks progressed, I wouldn't speak to a whole lot of people. I was scared to death. I had people opening up to me, and I was able to be vulnerable. And God placed some people around me that had experienced some of the things that I experienced. I didn't know what to do except for to tell people what was going on with me, and in hopes that they could do something about it. And there wasn't anything they could do about it. I'm like, hey man, do you hear that? They're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, dude, I'm wigging out, but like, I got to tell somebody. And I'm like, do you hear that? Do you see that? And so they would let me tell them the things that were going on with me. And the ones that were there, they were like, dude, I've been there. It's going to get better. And like, I had a hard time believing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, cause it'd been going on for a while now. And I had a hard time believing them. And so my prayers started turning into praying with other people. And then our praying with other people turned into a prayer group. This is all while in rehab. And my comfortableness of seeing God in this moment and God showing up for me in this moment. And it wasn't nothing crazy. It was really just I go into a quiet place. I call out to God in this quiet place. And in this quiet place, I feel comfort. In this quiet place, I feel safe. And it gives me enough to continue to go back out. When I say go back out of the room, back out into the world, it gives me enough to go back out again. And then when I get to this difficult part again, I go back into this quiet place. And I don't realize what I'm being taught at this moment. I don't realize what's formulating, I think is a good way of saying it. I don't realize what's being formulated. So it turns into prayer partner, and then it turns into a prayer group, and we have prayer group every single night. And I have a guy's name's Taylor Hammond, so he's in recovery with us today. Huge part of the beginning of my journey. He was my prayer partner once I got out of rehab, which they don't encourage that. That was just something that we took upon ourselves. It was absolutely orchestrated from God. It was divine intervention in this situation with him. And I was able to open up to Taylor. We were both like-minded when it came to Christ, and we were praying together. We started into a prayer group, and so I had this guy that I could tell God was working on. And it's like, who am I to even be able to see these things and understand these things, and the discernment still be there, and like all of these gifts that I hadn't experienced in a while started popping back up again. And so while in rehab at my absolute worst, I'm telling Taylor, I'm like, I think God's moving on this guy, man. And it's weird for me, you know what I mean? Like, cause I'm in psychosis, and it's it's just really weird. But like, I still knew God's voice. I still knew the pressing that he had upon my heart and upon my life, even at my absolute psychosis rock bottom, worst moment ever. And it's like, how are you able to use me in a situation like this? And we get to the point where I'm like, dude, this guy's getting ready to ask God to save him. He's like, what? And I'm like, God's moving on him, dude. And I was like, and we get to sit here and be a part of it. And obviously it wasn't that kind of conversation. There was a lot of profanity and everything involved in it. And dude, God gave me the opportunity, and I asked Taylor to do it with me, and I brought another guy in also, just to witness, not necessarily lay hands on him or anything like that. But I remember calling my pastor and telling my pastor, like, hey, these things are going on, man. And like, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. And like, I need to make sure that I know what it is that I'm supposed to do on leading this dude to the Lord. If God ends up, giving us this opportunity. I think I'm 3 weeks in rehab at this point now.
Wow.
My relationship's starting to grow. I'm starting to be open more to communicating with my pastor and seeing God and seeking God. And I think like at 3 weeks in, man, I was talking to him, and things were starting to happen for him. And he came to me and he was like, dude, I want to do it. And so we went into a room and separated ourselves from everybody else, shut the door, and I brought a chair out in the middle. And I just had the conversation with my pastor and was explaining to him what was going on in rehab. Like, dude, I'm a hot mess. I need help, big time. And so like I had the opportunity at the absolute worst part of my life and like complete loss of sanity, having God show up in a manner. Not only does he show up, but he takes it to a whole nother level of like, and you're going to lead this person to me. You know what I mean? And that part was just like a huge wow. Yeah, a huge wow moment, like mind blowing.
Even in your brokenness.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so at that point, I didn't really understand it at the moment. Dude, I didn't understand things until 6, 7, 8 months later. And I look back, and at that point, the psychosis was starting to move away, and I could start connecting the dots a little bit more. But like, you used me in a moment that I was unusable. And you used me in a moment that I was not capable. And you placed me in a position to show me that. And that was the defining moment for me, was in that rehab part of what you were asking a question on, all of that for that. But that was the defining moment of, I knew that he was real, and I knew he was there, and I knew that there was hope.
Wow.
And that's all it was at that point. It was just hope, faith of a mustard seed. And that was what my rock bottom looked like. How beautiful, right? You know what I mean? Like, it was such a bad moment, but at the same time, like, I cannot ever deny the power of God to be able to be used in a complete disastrous of a moment and environment.
Even in your rock bottom, he was still faithful and still using you.
I guess. I mean,
how incredible is that?
I think that's what that looks like.
How amazing is that?
It is one of the strongest stories of experience that I have. Whether people want to get down with it or not get down with it is up to them, but I'll forever tell the story.
And how does that lead to now you've devoted your whole life to helping men that are in the situation that you found yourself in?
So as God started moving in my life, and I think it was a lot, and I think it was quick. I just didn't think that I recognized it, right? Like him showing up, placing people around me, and like the key factors for my success has been the ones that God has placed around me. It's not been me. It's been the ones that he's placed around me to teach me what it is that I need to know to go into my next level. And I did not know that they were seasonal relationships. And so that one was very difficult to learn. As he started showing up little bit by little bit, sometimes a lot, and I started recognizing him, and I was giving back eyes to see. And I started receiving eyes to hear at that point, which were part of my prayers constantly still today, to give me eyes to see and ears to hear, because I still think that I'm blind, dumb, and deaf in a lot of areas, and I still need to work on those areas. I started falling in love with recovery. Okay, I didn't realize that I was falling in love with God also, because at that point, all I wanted was for this insanity to stop, for this psychosis to stop. I wasn't concerned about my future or anything else to go with it. I was actually living in the here and now moment of, I want this to stop. Nothing else exists. This is the only thing that exists. And so, in all honesty, I guess that was the real time only living in the presence that I've really ever experienced.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There was no future. There was no past. There was only the here and now, and it's life or death for me now, today, right now, in this moment, in this minute. And it was life or death for me for a very, very long time. And when I say a very, very long time, 1.5 years, 2 years, possibly even 3 years into my journey, that it's very life or death, and I'm very gung-ho on a lot of stuff. God starts showing up. And so as I'm starting to fall in love, as I'm starting to have all this change, and I'm getting life back, and my sanity's being restored, my heart's being restored, my soul's being restored, the redemption part of my life, all of these things, the restoration, as all of these things are starting to happen, the spiritual experiences that I'm receiving is creating and building faith within my life today. And so due to the spiritual experiences, and not only having the spiritual experiences, but like knowing that it was God, not just saying, oh, this happened and I don't really know what it is, but like God gets the glory for it, period, hands down. Nobody else is getting it.
having that type of journey and God showing up for me, man, I started falling in love with recovery. Well, for me, what is recovery? Well, foundational wise of my recovery is Jesus Christ. Whether it is for everybody else or not, for me, the foundation, and I've always thought about, sinking sand, build your house upon a rock.
Yeah.
I even created a Flex Friday and a post where I use that little bit of scripture terminology in the message that I shared. I knew from my beginning when I started praying that it has to be God. And that's who I cried out to. And that's what I prayed for. And that's what I received. And not just from him, but from the others around me that has the same belief. So as I started growing and evolving in recovery, I started falling in love with recovery. As I started falling in love with recovery, I wanted people to have this not recovery that I have, but this redemption that I have. Yeah, this healing process that I have. And when I say healing process, I don't think everybody's rock bottom was as excessive as mine. Not that I'm any better or one up or anything like that. That's just what it took for me. But I know that if God is capable and can take me from where he took me from and put me on solid ground today, and not only do that, but continue to lead and guide me and tell me, Jason, you're going in this direction, Jason, without knowing that I'm going in this direction. All of the things that I went through in my first 4.5 years all make sense on preparation on what it is that I'm doing in the ministry today. And I had no way of seeing that at all. I did good to see, in front of me for the next week or two, more or less anything in the future. If people would have told me that I would have made it to a year, I wouldn't have believed them. If they'd have told me, oh, you're going to be clean for 6 months, I wouldn't have believed them. And so, I'm pretty sure that the first part of my journey, and maybe for the first 1.5 years, I believe I was really recovering from a psychosis more than alcohol and drugs. I was recovering from the whole mental insanity, the fear part of psychosis. And I believe I was recovering from the disconnect from God more than anything else. I don't think the actual drugs and alcohol aspect of recovery started coming into play until my sanity was actually restored, which is what the steps talk about with the programs that I'm involved in. And so that was probably a part of it, man. And I just I kept seeking after God. God kept showing up. Why would I turn my back? Why would I look somewhere else? It was basically like, okay, get on this road, and as you get on this road, it's going to get better and better and better, and it's going to get better and better and better because of me. So why would I get off the road?
So why these men? Why does your heart break for them?
I think a lot of that has to do with my mom and dad working in ministry, watching my mom and dad, whether my mom liked it or didn't like it, my dad bringing in people. Yeah. And I didn't understand it, and I didn't know what that meant. And today I look back and it's like, that's exactly what I'm doing today. I remember Jane Fontaine and Laura Hanson out of South Carolina that they had came and lived with us on different occasions. I remember mom and dad and I remember doing things like that a lot. Like my mom and dad have always been involved in that type of activity. We have servants' hearts, man. I have a servant's heart, and I never understood that. I've always loved hard. Like I'm either loving you or I'm completely against you type ordeal. And so I have this heart full of love, and sometimes it can be a whole lot, and so therefore it comes a whole lot of pain. But I've had a servant's heart growing up, and I did not know that that's what it was. I loved people very deeply growing up, and I did not know what that was. It was more overwhelming than that I could handle. And so I see the relation in that stuff today. I know that for me, I made some bad decisions and I ended up on a bad path. It's not that I'm a bad person. I just made some bad decisions. I started surrendering to the world and the acceptance of the world and what the world had to offer me.
It felt good. It tasted good. It smelled good. Obviously very deceitful, but these, I think that a lot of people are in that same boat, and I don't feel like they are bad people. I've been given another chance.
Yeah.
And I think that these people in recovery community are given another chance. And I want to do everything I can to try to help these people maximize that chance that's being offered to them. Whether it's just sitting with them, or whether it's trying to help them navigate or facilitate in any type of area of their life, any type of counseling, whatever it is that I can do, my heart pours out to them, because like I've been there and I understand it. And if they're not careful, it's going to kill you. And so like I have a heart for it. I think that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. So you started Surrender House.
Yes.
You guys have 3, soon to be 4 houses.
Yes.
That you take men who are in the recovery process and give them a place to live, or they're out of the recovery process. How does it work?
We try to stick with a transitional living instead of a sober living house. I don't like the stigma of sober living, because I feel like everybody deserves an opportunity. Everybody deserves a chance. Everybody needs love. Everybody needs to be loved on. Everybody needs to be exposed.
So they don't have to be clean to come into
No. We need to be cleaned. But I'm saying, as far as like it just being a drug problem, we take people that are homeless. We've taken people that are coming out of mental hospitals. We're taking people that's coming out of detoxes, rehabs, incarcerated people who are institutionalized. We will give just about anybody a chance if you are looking for a second opportunity at life. It doesn't really matter to me if it's drug related or not drug related. Obviously, we are trying to help recovery and recovery from drugs and alcohol. That's one thing. Yes, the obsession for me was removed early in my journey to not want to use and drink again. Okay, that part was God removed that part from me very, very early. A lot of people don't have the obsession to want to quit drinking. What I really wanted was for once I started getting my mind back, I wanted all this to stop. Once all of this stopped, like I wanted to get my life back together. Once I started getting closer to God, now I'm starting to realize like I want what God has for me. I don't know what that looks like. We try to provide spiritual leadership. We try to provide spiritual guidance. A lot of people have a God problem. A lot of people are very confused about God. A lot of people have a lot of history growing up that keeps them from God, or believes that God doesn't exist, or he's a bad God, or whatever that looks like. So we be very forgiving and give them freedom in the decision making of what their God looks like. We try to show up and produce, how do I say it? We try to show up in a loving and caring and compassionate manner as God has shown up for us. So we try to be the vessel. We try to be the body. And we try to produce the same as what God is trying to do in your life. For a lot of people, they may not hear what we want to say when it comes to God. You know, a lot of people don't want to hear it. Well, like you don't have to make that decision, but like maybe through my walk and how I love you and how I communicate, you know, because that's what it was for Jesus Christ. You know, he said the things that he said, but he also produced the things that he said. So his feet match his mouth in that sense.
Well, and Jesus always met their felt need before the spiritual need.
Yes,
he definitely met the spiritual need, but before someone was open to hearing and receiving the spiritual need, the felt need, the physical need had to be met first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So someone walks into your program. You have a guy that walks into the doors of Surrender House that I would imagine all the things that they're feeling, all of the things that they're dealing with, that they're wrestling with, fighting through. Flash forward to when they're walking out of the doors of Surrender House. What do you hope he eventually believes about himself?
We're hoping that people will catch glimpses of God. We're hoping that seeds are planted.
we're hoping that if they ever decide to not move forward and they ever go back, that they will remember what it's like to be loved in that manner, to be cared for in that manner. We don't believe that everyone is going to be successful. We do not pride our success based off of a sheet of paper that says a certificate. That's not where we base our success rate. Are those things important? Absolutely. Do we work with the court system and Department of Corrections, all the things? Absolutely. We work with a phasing up model so that they can see what it is that these people are doing. The spiritual aspect of what we're doing is something that is very important to us, but we understand that not everybody is going to receive it. Not everybody's going to get on board with it. We want to see people be successful. We want to see them stay sober and clean. If I put a substance in my body today, a drink or a drug, I lose sight of my connection with God. God tends to disappear. And so as long as I can honor the step one, which is saying I'm powerless and my life has become unmanageable with alcohol, that if I can honor the step one and not put a substance in my body or a drink in my body, then like there's hope for me. And so like obviously we're hoping that they've learned how to stay sober and clean. Okay. But the connection with God and the seeds being planted, I think there's people that's planting seeds, there's people that's going to feed, there's people that's going to water, and it's their journey to have with their relationship with God and what that looks like. Some it's going to take longer than others. Some it's going to be faster than others. Some people come into the program that they don't have a God conception and they believe in the same God that we believe in. And some come in that they don't believe in God, period, whatsoever. We even had a Satanist come into our program. And we love on that person the same as everybody else. I know that God has never been forceful in my life. He's never forced me to go to church. He's never forced me to go play ball. He never told me that I had to do this or I had to do that. He is a perfect gentleman, and he's patient and he waits for me to make that decision. And until I make that decision, my life continues to be in the same way that it is. And not everybody's life's bad because they don't choose God, but there's a part that is missing, whether they realize it or whether they don't realize it.
Jason, can I tell you what I've been hearing?
Yeah.
That I came into today thinking that this conversation was going to be about addiction recovery, but I don't think that it was. I've been taking notes throughout the last 2 hours that we've been having our conversation, just writing down words that keep being repeated by you over and over and over again. And here's some of those words that you started off with, talking about belonging, connection, acceptance, need, being needed, being wanted, a disconnect from humanity, and then finding connection again and belong. We all have this desire that I think this innate desire that has been put in us from creation by the Creator to know and be known.
Yes.
To love and be loved. We all want to belong. Throughout the course of your story, throughout the journey, those keep coming up: acceptance, belonging, love. You said just a few minutes ago that even from back as a child that you loved hard, that you had a heart full of love and you didn't know what to do with that. You had this deep desire to belong. You had this deep desire for acceptance. You had this deep longing for connection and to be connected. It feels like your life has been defined by this desire for belonging, for connection, for acceptance. And you looked for it in places that were not fulfilling. And where you finally found it changed your life so dramatically that now you've devoted your life to helping others find belonging.
Yes.
Finding acceptance. And it almost seems to me, and I might be wrong here, so if I am, please correct me. It almost seems to me that you have finally, after 20 years of searching, 20 years of fighting, 20 years of struggle, you finally found your belonging. You finally found your connection. You finally found the acceptance that you've been longing for in providing that connection, that belonging, and that acceptance to others.
Yeah, I've been given people to love on, which is something I've always wanted to do, just love on people. I didn't realize it. Even in my addiction, I wasn't trying to take from people. I was still trying to be kind and gentle with people. There was some people that all they had left was like $20, and I would ask them, like, "Is this your last $20?" They're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "What does it take to get you high?" They're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "How much does it take to get you high?" And they would tell me, so I'd pull it out. And they're like, "What's this?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to get you high." And I would tell them, I want you to go put gas in your vehicle and go get something to eat. And like, dude, like, this just, I've misdirected everything. Because like what I'm doing there is compassionate, gracious, merciful, but directed in the wrong areas of life. Like, and I've always had a heart to help people and want to help people. I'm willing, even today, to take losses for other people's gains. I'm willing to sacrifice my own well-being for the betterment of somebody else. I don't know why I am like that, except it's how I was created. But that's just, my heart just goes out to people, period, hands down.
So someone listening to this right now that feels like they don't belong, they feel like they're not accepted, that they are chasing something that isn't fulfilling, they're not finding the acceptance in life that they want, what would you say to them?
Oh, man. Well, for one, there's hope. I think when people say, "What is hope?" It's hope's the proper response to the promises from God. That's a very good question. I'm not really too for sure how to throw that one out there. There is a God, and He is gracious, and He is merciful. Whether people want to believe it or not believe it, it's something that's rang true in my life. It's something that has shown up in my life for the past 6 years. And not just, when I say in my life, not just for me specifically, but watching the light bulb cut on for other people and being able to be there and help navigate them and guide them is something that it's a joy and it's a blessing. There is hope. His name is Jesus. He can be found. He's not going to force you to come after him. It has to be a choice.
I would say, I want to interject really quick, because I would say that he can be discovered. I think that we as a church, as a Christian community, we sing songs like "I Found Jesus," as if he's hiding or missing. Looking back on your life, he was never hiding from you.
No.
He was never missing. He was always pursuing you, always there. But it's up to us to recognize and to discover what he's been doing in our lives. He's not there to be found as if he was hiding from us, but just waiting for us to be discovered.
Yeah, he's always there. The experiences that we have where people say they're unexplainable. They're not necessarily unexplainable. People just don't want to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
And that is what we call God, doing things for us that we can't explain. That's why it's miraculous. It's called a miracle. But yeah, I totally get that. He's not hiding. He's there all the time. We have to take the initiative of saying, okay, like, for me, it's like, what else do you have to lose?
Yeah.
What do you have to lose if you've decided to do things your own way, you be your own God, choose these other gods, and you keep getting the same results? And don't get me wrong, it's not going to be easy. It's not all, life doesn't just become grand. But like, what do you have to lose by giving it a shot and trying to reach out to him. He's standing there waiting for sure.
Jason, I almost asked you a question probably 45 minutes ago that I made a little note to ask you this question, and then I didn't. And over the course of the last 45 minutes, I just keep coming back wanting to ask you this question. And so if you decide you want to edit this out, you say, I'm not at a place that I want to answer this, perfectly great. Maybe this will never see light, but I feel like the Holy Spirit leading me to ask you this question. When I asked you how things were with your family, you said they were great except for with one person.
Yes.
If that person were listening to this show, what would you want to say to them?
Well, to start with, I would want to go into an amends for how I've acted to start with. I would want to tell this person that, like, regardless of how you feel, regardless of the views that you think everybody has towards you, regardless of the ideas that you place, on your plate and the beliefs that you have, you're wrong. That there is a God, and He is all powerful, and He is miraculous, and He can change everything about your life. We don't have to be alone anymore. We don't have to be disconnected anymore. We don't have to sit there and think that everybody is against us, and that everybody is out to get us. There's people that want to love you, and the only reason they want to love you is because there is a God, and because regardless of how we have acted and what we've done and how we've displayed our lives, He continues to love us, and He continues to show up for us. I know a little bit more about what family looks like today, and when we don't have a piece of our family back, there's a piece that's missing. The only way that stuff comes to surface and comes to light is by having that awakening with God, knowing that He is real and He is true, and believing that He is real and true, believing that the things that God says about me are true, believing the things that God says about Himself are true, and believing that He can restore and redeem any situation in life is true. But that is a choice that we have to make, and we serve a God that gives us that choice, and we get the repercussions of either choosing or not choosing. But yeah, we miss that person.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. If someone is listening right now, watching right now, that either is going through a struggle or has a family member that they're listening to your story and what you're doing with Surrender House, and they say, I need to find out more. What does that process look like for them? How can they get in contact with you? How can they begin the process of finding out more about your ministry and how you can serve them? Or if someone is listening to this and saying, your story really moved something in me, and I want to support you and be involved in this, how do they best contact you and begin that process?
We have a website, it's surrenderhouseministries.com. On the website, it gives you information about what the programming looks like. There's applications, guidelines, expectations at the bottom. There is a phone numbers on the website for me and my wife to contact personally. We have a social media page, which is Surrender House on Facebook, basically just updating you on the success and everything that's taking place within the program as well. We have Surrender 24@gmail.com, I think is the email.
We'll put we'll find that out for sure and put that in the show notes.
Yeah, I think that's correct. My wife is the one that does that aspect of it. I'm a little more hands-on with some stuff. But surrenderhouseministries.com is probably one of the easiest and the quickest ways to find out a little bit more about us. We try to answer the phone and email back as much as possible.
Amazing. Well, Jason, we have a closing tradition on this show that I like to say, for some people that are going to hear your story through this, if you had the opportunity to sit on the front porch with them and tell them one thing, what is it that you would say to them?
Oh, man. Dude, there's so much that can be said. I would tell them that there is a God and that he can heal and that he can restore. Everything that you think you've lost can be given back to you. And it can be given back to you in abundance, not just piece by piece. I've lost everything, and I've lost everything multiple times. And God has given me back everything that I have lost, and way more than I could have ever imagined. But I think the biggest thing is, like, I've got to believe that he is real, and I've got to believe that he exists. And I have to trust that what it is I'm asking out of him, that he can produce, and that he's capable of producing it. I can't just believe that God's real and then not trust that he can do miracles and have faith that he can do miracles. There's a barrier that's broken between us, me and God, at that point, if that's something that's true. So not only do I believe, but I have to believe everything that's being said about God exists and it's real and it's true today. And if I can get on board with that part of my life and my relationship with him, then, like, the outcome's only the beginning.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, man, it's been
Thank
awesome.
you for sharing the story. Incredible, the work that God is doing in you and the work that he is doing through you in your life. It's been an honor and a privilege to hear that. Thank you for sharing your story with us. One of the things that I love about conversations like this is that they remind us that no one becomes who they are overnight. Every life is shaped by moments of joy, pain, unexpected detours, and people who refuse to give up on us. Jason's story isn't a story about addiction recovery. It's about redemption. It's about believing that no chapter, not even the darkest ones, get the final word. And maybe that's the invitation for all of us today. Whatever chapter you're living in right now, don't mistake it for the whole story. God is still writing. The picture isn't finished. Thank you for joining us on the porch today. Be sure that you like, subscribe, follow us, and be sure and check out Jason's ministry. Be sure to follow him on the social media, surrenderhouseministries.com, and find Surrender House on Facebook, Instagram. We'll have all of that in the show notes. And be sure to share this episode with someone that you think probably needs to hear Jason's story. We'll see you all next week right here on the porch.